Hey guys, Rick from KS USA here. Today we're going to go over how to service your KS seat post. So the tools you'll need to maintain your post are Allen key set, strap wrench, diagonal cutters or wire cutters, utility knife, carbon paste, zip ties, KS post paste or equivalent, degreaser, lint-free cloth, vise with soft jaws. Okay, so we have our LEV mounted in the soft jaws in the vise here. So our first step is going to be to use our strap wrench to remove the end cap. So go ahead and set your strap wrench on. Next step is to go ahead and remove the cable from the actuator. You're going to push the actuator in slightly. You want to rotate or roll that barrel so that it will unhook. Use a little bit of electrical tape, or masking tape works too if you have it on hand. A rubber band will also work. And you want to tape this in position. Next step, take your strap wrench. We're going to go ahead and remove the seal collar. Okay, so with our strap wrench, we're going to go ahead and tighten this on the shaft. Then using a wrench, we're going to remove the end assembly here, the actuator assembly. So give your strap wrench a little twist, that'll give you extra torque. Remove that and the piston, set that aside. When you take this shaft out, take note, there's a short side and a long side. The short side goes towards the top of the post, the long side goes towards the bottom of the post. So when you put this back together, it's important to make sure that you get that in the right direction. And take out our bottom out bumper. Okay, our next step is to go ahead and remove the cartridge assembly. Go ahead and set the shaft aside. There's 3 copper bushings here. Be careful you don't drop those or lose those. And we're going to go ahead and use the utility knife to remove those. Okay, so if during the maintenance you found that you have a worn or damaged cable, we're going to show you how to replace that at this time. With a 3 and a 2 millimeter Allen, you want to remove the barrel. Now if you have a cable that's completely broken and this is no longer in the post, you can omit this step. That barrel is going to come off. We have a second barrel up here in the cable anchor. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. And again, we're going to use the 2 and 3 millimeter Allen to take these out. Okay, so your replacement cable setup is going to come with 2 ferrules and the Kevlar cable. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and install one of the ferrules on one of the ends of the cable. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install the cable. You want the cable to protrude through about 1 millimeter. Okay, again, we want to check and make sure that the end of this doesn't stick up more than about 1 millimeter or so. Okay, so the next step is to go ahead and feed the link cable down through. Okay, now it's important to make sure that this goes in straight and lines up. Okay, so our next step is with the cable pulled down and tight. I'm going to go ahead and pull this back. Then using a ruler or a caliper from the end of the seat post, you want to measure up 15 millimeters, make a mark on the cable. So our mark is here. Okay, so our next step is to go ahead and put the end ferrule in. When we do this, we want to make sure we line up to the outside of that 15 millimeter mark. In other words, we want to make sure that there's still 15 millimeters from here to here. If you put the ferrule on the other side, you're going to reduce it by about 3 or 4 millimeters. That's going to be too short. So just pay real close attention when you install this to make sure that you put this in the right way. Okay, now our last step is to trim the cable. You want to leave about 1 to 2 millimeters of cable. There you go. Now if you stop and sight down the shaft, you're going to see the raceways. There's one raceway that lines up with the cable system here, and you want to make sure that your cable goes inside there. So now we're going to go ahead and put the cartridge assembly in. You're going to want to be careful when you slide this in not to dislodge that cable, and make sure that the 3 raceways line up with the 3 copper guide bushings. And go ahead and push this through. Our next step is to put in the push rod. You can put a little dollop of grease on the end of this, and then we're going to put the actuator assembly on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install our strap wrench. Again, we're going to put some side pressure to this, and with our wrench, go ahead and snug down the actuator assembly. Go ahead and take our strap wrench back off. Okay, so our last step is going to be to install the cable end in the actuator. Go ahead and push the actuator into the bottom of the cartridge body. Next, compress the actuator lever. Rotate the cable slightly so it clears this side. Install it. Gently let it rotate back into position. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the end cap. Reinstall your seal collar. Now your LEV is ready to reinstall on your bike. Okay, so now that we've got this in the bike and the cable anchor oriented the direction that we want so it lines up with our cable guides, we now need to reorient the head. So to do that, first we're going to disassemble the head clamp assembly here. Okay, so with the clamp assembly off, we're going to go ahead and remove this cap and the cradle. And inside is a shredder valve. So we're going to use our shock pump. Install the shock pump on. Factory setting is 150 psi. You could put anything from 100 to 250 psi in. If you want to add pressure, go ahead and pump that up with your pump. If you want to decrease pressure, you can use your pump to release pressure from it. When you have that setting that you'd like, notice here that there's some bearings, and on the flip side of the cap here you have some detent positions. So the detent can go in any position all the way around 360 degrees. So in this case we want this to point here to the front of the bike, so we're going to orient it that way. We're going to thread in our cap. Okay, so now with the cradle oriented forward, we'll go ahead and reassemble our clamp. Okay, now we're ready to install our saddle.